It's alleged foreign governments patronised Trump hotels to curry favour with the president. So a lot to consider, and thankfully we have on the panel someone who's covered 9 presidential campaigns. George W. Bush called her the Cobra. According to former Obama strategist David Axelrod, she got under the 44th president's skin more than any other journalist. And President Trump has called her a neurotic dope. Her latest book is The Year of Voting Dangerously, The Derangement of American Politics. Welcome to the drum, Maureen Dowd.
Thank you, Julia. So exciting.
Now, how much danger is President Trump actually in? Do you think there will be an impeachment or indictment as a result of these charges?
Well, I think that Robert Mueller will deliver a scalding report, but I don't think there'll be an indictment because Mueller is a by-the-book guy. And right now, he refers to the Justice Department as Mother Justice. And right now, Mother Justice has a policy that you don't indict sitting presidents. But I think he is in ever-growing danger of impeachment because at first the Democrats were leery about impeachment because when the Republicans impeached Bill Clinton, there was a backlash. But now that he's surrounded by this felonious gang, I think Democrats are not going to be able to resist if they win the House.
Chas, how precarious do you think his position is?
Look, I agree with much of what Maureen just said. I think as far as indictment goes, that's pretty much off the table, except for maybe after he's president, but that would be a big call. Presidents don't tend to prosecute their previous presidents. That hasn't been done, as far as I know, ever.
So many things have never been done.
That is true. That is true. As far as impeachment goes, that's an entirely political situation. Even though theoretically it's meant to be a trial in the Senate, it's a very political decision. So while I would say, for instance, with campaign finance violations, for instance, I would say it would be very hard for him to be found guilty in a court of law about that because the law of campaign finance violations is that you need to actually know that you were breaking the law to be guilty of a criminal violation. That's hard to prove. So I think that'd be hard to prove, but that's not going to stop them making that account in an impeachment trial if they want to impeach him. So I would say the question is not what happened last week. The question is, do the Democrats win the House? If the Democrats win the House, then Donald Trump is going to be impeached. There will be a trial in the Senate. If the Democrats do not win the House, then he will not. It's as simple as that.
Okay, so no question of the independence or the validity or the strength of those arguments or issues.
Absolutely no question whatsoever.
That's really reassuring.
It's just political.
Yeah. Well, Barbara, sorry, but I just want to ask Barbara's view on this, given it was about.
I read so many of his remarks as absolutely grotesque, but that's just Trump being Trump. He's an equal offensive opportunist, and he spreads it around to everyone, including, unfortunately, the late Senator John McCain, you know, when he said he was not a hero. If there's one thing I think he'd like to take back that he said about other people, that one is going to haunt him, I believe, forever. And I certainly hope that he'll have a moment of, I've got to learn to put my brain in motion before I put my mouth in motion. And I think a lesson taken away from that. But Trump has insulted so many people, so it's not a matter of race when he's insulting people. He just fights back and he wants to get a punch in. He wants to get the last punch in.
Okay, I want to return to the question of race, but you just think he's an indiscriminate insulter.
Absolutely.
Before we leave the question of McCain, Chas, what do you make of the storm regarding the president's handling of the death of John McCain?
I think it is sadly predictable. I think he doesn't do himself any favours because people are contrasting. The thing about McCain is that he is a person who people are talking about from a perspective of character. And so for Trump to not show character, and also McCain, the other thing about McCain is he learns from his mistakes. He apologises. That's the thing that's most famous about McCain is that he constantly acknowledges his errors and apologises for them. He's famous for it. And Trump clearly is not going to apologise or acknowledge his errors. And I think by contrast, he comes off quite poorly. But having said that, he did walk it back a little bit last night, which was, I think, wise, because otherwise there would have been a whole week of, come on, President Trump, talk about McCain, talk about McCain, talk about McCain. So he was wise to at least give a begrudging speech in the end via Twitter, of course.
Now, Maureen, I want to get to the question of the character of Donald Trump because you've seen him and spoken to him up close many times. But before we do, this question of danger, we've addressed whether he's in danger. What about the perils for American democracy? I mean, your book, The Year of Voting Dangerously, The Death of Truth from Mishi Kakatuni, your former colleague and your friend. And as you say in your book, you pose the question about whether America's on an escalator to hell, right? Now, is that true? Do you see him as a serious danger?
Well, the good news, Julia, is that in America's modern history, we've had many crazy presidents. So this is not so uncommon. JFK and Nixon kept psychotropic drugs in the medicine cabinet. LBJ's aides used to argue about whether he was a manic depressive or a paranoid. Which mental condition did he have? Jimmy Carter saw UFOs. We have dealt with this before. As Arthur Schlesinger, the JFK aide and historian, said, there's no provision in the Constitution for nuts. But, you know...
But what about his constant undermining of institutions, you know, including the media? I mean, but every chance he gets through, you know, scandal after scandal by just saying it's fake.
Right. I know I may be in a minority here, but to me, someone like Dick Cheney, who abides by the norms while he is pushing something illegal, the worst foreign policy mistake in American history, the Iraq War that he led us into, is much scarier to me than someone who's out there going crazy in real time, and then people can react in real time and wrestle him to the ground. As with the McCain, you know, so all week he was like refusing to put the White House flag at half-mast while other ones around the White House were at half-mast. And, you know, John Kelly, his chief of staff, and everyone was arguing with him. And finally, he did it today. But, you know, Trump is so truculent and petulant and petty, but you know, he does it in real time, as opposed to someone like Dick Cheney, who had a lot of respect, and it took years for all the people in Washington to realize, wait a minute, he is crazy. He's led us into this awful war.
But now to know that the president has, you know, got this time blocked out where he's watching the television, yelling at the television, tweeting in the small hours, and as you
we refer to that as executive time.
Executive time. That's right. Now, but didn't you do an interview recently? Was it executive time in the morning for your book on CNN? And discovered that you thought no one was going to be watching it, but then you discovered that the president
that was
in fact
when Trump, you know, I used to be able to interview him, but he cut me off because during the campaign, he saw me doing an interview on CNN on Saturday morning at 9 a.m. And I thought, no one is watching this. And then it turned out one person was. Because basically he's in this constant narcissistic loop where he only watches and reads things about himself. And then if he sees something on TV about himself, he tweets about it. And then he watches while the TV show reads his tweet and reacts to it. And then he reacts to the reaction. So he is, you know, I think the purest narcissist we're going to see in our lifetimes.
And his greatest relationship is with the
himself.
Press and himself.
Well, the press, you know, he's Narcissus and we're the mirror. He's the selfie president and we're the selfie stick. You know, not Melania, we are the most intense, tortured, complicated, passionate relationship he has, Trump and the press.
And as we said before, we know that he's said various insults towards you. You first met him 20 years ago in Miami, he used to call you and I think give you just what was it, the shorthand, the quick rounds?
The lightning round.
The lightning round. So you would just give him the name of someone and he would give you a comment.
But I was very disappointed because when he began trashing me on Twitter, you know, he didn't give me one of those customized nicknames like Pocahontas or Sleepy Eyes. Todd, I'd known him for 30 years. I wanted a real customized nickname. And instead, he just calls me what he calls every female journalist who says something critical of him, which is wacky, crazy, neurotic, dope. I mean, it's so generic. It's not up to his usual standards.
Maureen, there's a lot of talk about the press misreading Trump and not understanding, and you have these debates within your own family about kind of who he is and what the essence of him is. Has he changed from when you first met him? And I think in 1996 it was that Michael Singer wrote that profile of him saying that he had the ultimate luxury, which is an existence unmolested by the rumblings of the soul, when he was looking at Trump's relationship with luxury. Is that who he is, or is that a caricature of who he is?
He, in many ways, he hasn't changed. I mean, he's getting distilled to his essence, which is a very frightening thing. But he started out, you know, one of the first times I called to interview him, just generally on politics and culture, he said to me, I don't think I can give you the interview. And I said, why not? And he said, well, you're in the Saturday paper, and the circulation is not as good as the Sunday paper. So I think I should give the interview to Frank Rich, who has a column in the Sunday paper. So we started right off on what I call his ego arithmetic. And then when I went with him on an early campaign, he was thinking of running in 2000, only just flirting with it. And we went to Miami on his plane full of junk food and a double bed and fake French Impressionist paintings and gold, naturally. And we got down there, and I said to him, what on earth makes you think you could be president? And he looked at me really hurt, and he said, I get the biggest ratings on Larry King. And he said, and Melania, who he was dating then, who was with us, he said, Melania is on a lot of magazine covers, and my name is on the General Motors building 5 times, and a lot of men hit on Melania. And that was literally his answer for why he could be president.
And when he met with the New York Times editorial board, which at the meeting that I was at as well, he did also cite then, which would have been almost 20 years afterwards, he mentioned the ratings for The Apprentice.
Yes. What was
mixed in with his own polls.
But what was your impression of him at that meeting? Well,
I mean, the first thing he did was hand out what you said, this arithmetic,
right.
which was it was kind of, it wasn't polished or beautifully handled. It was just like a wad of papers with a series of numbers put down it. Right. And he, you know, I remember like they said, and someone asked him about immigration, like, what's your position going to be on immigration? And he just went, well, I tell you what, Angela Merkel, she's been a disaster, and I should have been on the front cover of Time magazine. Everyone knew it. They all told me I should have been on there. You know, she's let immigrants in. And we're like, and that was the answer to the question about immigration.
He's the only person who still is talking about the cover of Time magazine. I don't even know if Time exists anymore, really.
Now, you've also written before and caused some storm around the fact that you said that Obama, his deliberation, reticence and caution to a fault, actually spurred an appetite for someone like Trump.
Well, actually, that was a point made by David Axelrod, who was Obama's chief strategist. He said that, you know, there's always the attraction of the opposite in politics. So with W was very black and white. And then, you know, because of the Iraq War and this desire for a boogeyman and stuff, the people had a craving for someone more cerebral and nuanced and who could see the grays and things. So then they wanted Obama. But once they got the grays and the nuance and the cerebral, they had a craving for, you know, alpha kind of big dog. So then they wanted Trump. That was Axelrod's point.
And can you just tell us just quickly, because I want to talk more generally about which of these characteristics actually matters when it comes to the question of leadership. But tell us about your relationship with President Obama, because he did take you aside to give you some constructive feedback at one point, didn't he?
Very constructive. I think I was one of the first people who started suggesting that Obama would be an amazing president. I had a dinner with Rahm Emanuel, who later became his chief of staff, but at that point he was a former Clinton staffer, so he was all about the Clintons. And I said, well, what about Barack Obama? You know, he's amazing. And you know, Ron was nah. And then I realized maybe Ron was jealous because they were both the same age. And, you know, a lot of people like John McCain were a little jealous of Obama because he had just kind of breezed through the Senate in 5 minutes. But in a way, that's why Tom Daschle told Obama to run before he had a record, because it's so much easier that way.
Right.
And there was a
Tell us
little
when he
more
took